There are certain disadvantages to getting old, but there's one great advantage: it doesn't last. A very strange coincidence happened very recently on the 30th of December. Wasn't it the 30th? November, I mean. I finished a book about my relationship with SRF and my feelings about things that need changing. And that same day, Dayamata, the president of SRF, died. And I feel I should say a few words about her and me and what I'm talking about and so on. The thing is that one doesn't like, when a person dies, to speak ill of the dead. I do not plan to speak ill of her, but I have to say that there was always a kind of sibling rivalry between us, and I can't ignore something that was a reality. I think it began possibly back, Yogananda said that he was, and may I have something to drink here? Yogananda said that he was William the Conqueror. I tell you, when I first heard that, it really knocked me for a loop, because I had been raised in the English system, and I'd been raised to think that William the Conqueror was one of history's great villains. And here I found he was my own guru. So it sent me scurrying through my history books, and I had to do a lot of studying. And I gave to Catherine Karabi, an Ananda member, the job of researching his life, and also, as I had come to feel in the meantime, long after he had made that first announcement, that I was his youngest son, Henry, who completed his tradition. So I was as much to blame as he, if there's any blame involved. Well, one thing that I realized too was that an avatar is different from a saint. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says that whenever evil increases and virtue declines, I incarnate myself as an avatar to punish evil, not evildoers, but evil, to put it in its place and to set virtue back on its throne again. And an avatar sometimes has a fierce role to play, unlike saints who have to keep emphasizing their humility and so on. But I must say that there's a delightful story about a saint of our times, Teresa of Neumann of Konnersreuth in Germany. She was a stigmatist, and when she was a young lady, many of the local swains would come around trying to court her, and she had absolutely nothing to do with them. In fact, Master said that she was Mary Magdalene in a former life, so she'd pretty well had it with men. And sometimes she would have to drive these young swains off the farm with a pitchfork. And people might say, well, was this an example of Christian humility? And I have to answer, no, it was an example of Christian bliss. Sometimes bliss is very strong, and it's not always easy to live around. So William the Conqueror had a hard life. He had a hard role to play. An ordinary saint couldn't have done it, but only a true saint could have done it. And so he had a disciplinary life in which he had to bring a whole country back into the Roman fold, which at that time was the truest example of Christianity, and away from the quasi-pagan kind of Christianity that they practiced in Norway and the Scandinavian countries. And so that was his role in that lifetime, and it was not an easy role. He also, however, He founded many monasteries, and if you read his life, one fact stands out as pure astonishment, that at 430 years after his death, his body was exhumed and was found to be incorrupt, which is quite astonishing, because that's only happened in the cases of saints. But another thing is, he said, he used to tell us, but he never would tell who it was, that he was also born as a leader, a king in Spain, who helped to drive the Moors out of Spain. His job seems to have been to protect Christianity from dilution, from attack. And one wonders, now this is going far out, so be prepared to suspend your incredulity. But could he have been Jesus himself? I have to say, when I studied the life of Jesus Christ in the commentaries of Yogananda, I, who lived with Yogananda, could not help but feel that there was a very strong similarity of energy between the two. I don't know, but I am fascinated by this kind of discussion. However true it is, I can't say. But I must say that another interesting thing, because he didn't say who he was, but he obviously was prominent. He was not El Cid. El Cid was not all that reputable a person, but he lived at the same time as William the Conqueror, so it was not El Cid, thank God. And this friend of mine researched all these different kings, and he felt that he was Fernando or Ferdinand III. And his son and heir was Alfonso X. And Alfonso X wrote over 400 pieces of music. I wrote over 400 pieces of music. He was very interested in astronomy, and I used to want to be an astronomer. And he wrote many books of philosophy, and I wrote many books of philosophy. Lots of interesting parallels that make me think that quite possibly I was that guy. Even anyway, these are all interesting speculations. But the thing is that during the time of William, Daya herself told me that she was his daughter Agatha. Many English versions of the life of William don't even mention Agatha, but that's probably because she left young or died young. But she was sent by him to be the wife of the heir of the Kingdom of Spain, Leon Castile. And she did not want to go. And she died, she was found dead on her knees when the ship came into port. And I think I was Henry, and Catherine Caravee's book makes such a strong case for it with the similarities between us, which are quite astonishing. Not the sort of similarity that they both liked walking in the woods. I don't mean something like that. I mean very strong points of a similarity. One of them being certainly an interesting point, that in his public speaking, Henry, just like me, liked to talk very informally. It was not formal kind of talking. Anyway, it is an interesting book, and I do recommend that you read it because it's great fun. It's fun to speculate on these things. But I was, in that case, therefore, Daya's brother. And there was between us in this lifetime, I can't deny it, a certain sibling rivalry. But I have to say also that it never came from me. I loved her. I thought very highly of her. And I did my best to be on her team and to be with her. The antagonism, for some reason, came from her. Now, maybe I'm a detestable person. I don't know. This is entirely possible, and I'm willing to accept the possibility. However, the truth is that she really did not go the way I went. Let's say it this way. She said years ago, my problem is not with the good people at Ananda, my problem is with Kriyananda. So she said it fairly openly. Another thing she said back in 1990 at a meeting that we had in Fresno was that I will not face Master until this problem has been resolved. And it looks like she lived as long as she did, just waiting for me to die. I don't know, but you can see that there was a certain something. She, well, let's put it this way. Her Jupiter, now mind you, I'm giving you a very weird talk this morning. So, forgive me. But her Jupiter was in Capricorn. And Capricorn is Jupiter in its fall. And it's Jupiter is expansive, but in its fall, it's contractive. And my Jupiter is in Aquarius, where it's very expansive. So with these two contrasts, you have to see that there's going to be some kind of a clash. I want to speak well of her. After all, she's gone now. But on the other hand, I cannot speak with any kind of support for a point of view that, to my mind, was exactly the opposite of what our Guru needed. Back as Agatha, she felt that she had done this because of her love for God. But on the other hand, she was going against her own Guru's will. And in this lifetime, Master, all his life, spent his life talking in public with great urgency and fervor of the need for cooperative communities, this to which I have dedicated my life. I asked her back in 1958, when are we going to start building these communities? Her answer was, frankly, I'm not interested. Master came to build a work that would be for all, it would change civilization, even as William did. If you read the historians, many of them say that everything we are today we owe to William. Believe it or not, his impact was very great. And he came into this age to bring a change in civilization. And Daya's statement was, he came to start a monastery. This is not what he did. She said, frankly, I'm not interested when it came to the communities. So you have to see that I cannot agree with many things. And it's not a personal thing. But I do feel very strongly that Master wanted his work not to be contractive, not to be small, not to exclude people, not to have lots of rules that would repress, none of those. He came to be expansive and full of the kind of energy that would change the world. And he said to me, and this too is well worth keeping in mind, he many times said to me, you have a great work to do. One time I was standing with Herbert Fried, and Herbert was going to go to Phoenix to be the minister of our church there. And after he talked a while, giving Herbert advice for what to do there in Phoenix and so on, he paused and then he said, you have a great work to do. And I looked at Herbert with a felicitation. And Master said, it's you I'm talking to, Walter. He called me Walter because my birth name is James. James Donald Walters. And so from then on, he many times told me, always in private, I think because he knew that I would have to do this on my own, outside that organization. But he told me many times, you have a great work to do. Or you have to do this because you have a great work to do. Or you shouldn't do that because you have a great work to do, that sort of thing. And one time he said, apart from St. Len, Rajarshi Janakananda, every man has disappointed me, and you mustn't disappoint me. And he spoke with so much power, and I swore I would not disappoint him if I possibly could help it. And I mean, you never know, but you do your best. I have to say that just a few days before he left his body, he said, I want you to know this. You have pleased me very much. So I'm grateful for that. Well, why did he say every man has disappointed me? He had wonderful men disciples. But the thing is that male energy goes outward. Female energy comes inward. These are basic differences between the sexes, and they're visible even in the sex organs. And male energy was what was needed to spread his work. Daya said to me, let's face it, women are more spiritual than men. And I thought, yes, that's why all the avatars are women. I mean, Jesus Christ and Buddha, we know there are women in disguise. Of course they were. Well, anyway, but that was her take on it. She believed in contractiveness, and I didn't. And so we had to come to a disagreement on this point. I could not help it. Master had many very good men disciples. But the thing is that each one of them was thinking in terms of his own spiritual progress. When I read Autobiography of a Yogi in New York in 1948, and I took the next bus across the country to become his disciple, I was the typical sort of arrogant young American, I suppose, but to think of being somebody's disciple would 1 week earlier have been absolutely preposterous. But I knew that this was the man who could tell me what I needed. And so when I crossed the country, I went thinking, first of all, I'm going to find my guru, and he will lead me to God. And secondly, I thought this message is so wonderful. I want the whole world to know about it. So I had that deep desire in my nature. It always has been in my nature that if I find a good thing, I try to share it with everybody. I used to love to ski, and while I was living at Mount Washington, all the monks would go skiing. After I left, nobody's gone. It's just the way I'm built. If I believe in something, I can't help talking about it. And I want to share that good with everybody, not to force it down their throats, but to say, look, isn't this wonderful? And this is what my life has been here in this world, in this lifetime. I very deeply hunger to see all human beings turn toward the bliss of their own nature. I feel like going up and grabbing him and say, don't you know where your own happiness lies? It lies in you. It doesn't lie in things. And the more you can be in tune with that, the more you will find that you have just what you were looking for. Well, this has been my nature, and he saw that. And so he found that in me. And I'm glad that he did. But naturally, there was not a corresponding empathy, you might say, between these 2 points of view. The one contractive, the other expansive. So what can I say? I can say this much, that I did and I do love her. Yes, she was my enemy, but I didn't make her my enemy. She made me her enemy. I didn't have anything against her. I wished her well. I was her supporter. And in the Mahabharata, the story is that after these two enemy sides, all siblings and relatives and so on, but after they died and they went to heaven, then they had a good laugh over it all. And that was one show over with. And I think that's how it will be in this lifetime too. That if we meet in heaven, I can't see how we won't, that we'll look back and have a good laugh. But there have to be oppositions in this world for the world to function at all. So I'm grateful for her life. I'm grateful for the way she treated me. I have to say that it has helped to make Ananda strong. And sometimes you need a little sand to sort of hone your knife better. So I'm grateful for it. But I cannot give her the eulogy that would be expected of me on this particular occasion, which is the first time I've had a chance to talk in public about her life. I cannot do that. I will not be a hypocrite. Yet I know that she was a beautiful soul, and in her way a great soul. I have to say also, I don't think she was doing her guru's will. She cut out things that were essential to his work. The greatness of it, the world importance of it, the need for communities. And nowadays, with the economy going the way it is, I think that people are going to find that this is the solution for people. Get together with others of like mind and share, get some land in the country, share your lives together. We have been at Ananda now for more than 42 years, and we've had a chance to understand how these things work, to work out the kinks. No, it's not easy to start communities, but we have done so and have been grateful to do so. We find that you can have many people living together with different points of view, different interests, and yet be really good friends together. It's a wonderful community. You hardly ever see an argument. You hardly ever see a strong difference of opinion. When somebody gets married, well, usually it takes two people to get married. So when two people get married, there's always somebody pitching in with money to help them with their honeymoon or help them settle down, all these things. Everybody helps everybody. When somebody's without a job, people help them to get a job. When somebody's ill, they visit him in the hospital. Somebody not long ago died, and there were about 20 people in her hospital room chanting and singing. This kind of thing, the hospital people themselves just could hardly believe. But it does happen. It can happen. You can be friends with your neighbors. You don't have to have angry neighbors. You can have friendly neighbors. And this is what we have proved. And this, at this time, we have worked out the kinks. I say, if you find that you're likely to be fired, it's going to happen to a lot of you, and you just, there's nothing to be done about it. If you're alone, it's a very hard life. If, on the other hand, you are able to be with friends, to get land, to grow food together. I myself would be a hopeless farmer. I just wouldn't know what to do. I'd plant my turnips upside down or something. And could I build a building for myself to live in? Well, I'll have to tell you a little confession that I did do some building once, and every nail I hit, I would hit it 10 times. The first 9 times I'd miss it. The third time the nail would bend over. I am not a carpenter. So I'm very fortunate to have carpenters with me, people who can do the things I can't do, and I can do things they can't do. When you have a group of people all living together, working together, then you have somebody who is good at just about anything. Usually you'll find somebody knows how to do something. You get a group of people and you have much more stability. We at Ananda, we have that kind of stability that is born also, we understand. It gives you an understanding of human nature. You see some people, they live in such a way that over a period of time, things start to go wrong for them. And then you understand that's not the way to live. Otherwise, how can you tell? You can tell from your own experience that this was not the right way, or you can tell from other people's experience. When you see those people over many years, then you see what may have looked like a good idea at the first turned out not to be such a good idea after a while. And so, in a community like ours, you see some people who think in terms of others, think in terms of helping and being kind to one another and so on. And you see a few people who think of me and me first kind of attitude. And you see that the first attitude works always. The second attitude, in the end, always is its own doing. Therefore, having a community is more secure, more spiritually helpful. It's, I think, the ideal way to live. But I have to say that the economy today is driving us in that direction. And I think that Ananda, if it has a role in America to play, it will be this. It will be to help other people to know how to live together in the country and close to nature. Think of a time when it will be hard to find food, when people without jobs and their payments from the government, their compensation runs out. What are they going to do? It's bound to come. It is coming. And they keep talking, but the government tells us lies. They keep talking about how it's only a temporary blip. Well, it's not, I'm afraid. Please take me seriously. Okay, well, I haven't given you a sermon yet, have I? Okay. Let me try. This is from a book called Conversations with Yogananda. When I lived with him, he told me to write down what he was saying. And so I wrote what became 2 books, and then my other book, The New Path, which is full of stories, hundreds of stories about him. All these books help to make him come alive. And this one is, the first one I did was The Essence of Self-Realization. That's more philosophical. This one is also more human, more sort of what it was like to be chatting with him. And in lectures, the master would sometimes address a question people often ask concerning the nature and even the existence of evil and its purpose in the great scheme of things. There needs to be a villain, he explained, so that people will be inspired to love the hero. If you act the villain's part, however, you will have to suffer his punishment. Joseph Stalin, he continued, was one such villain. I'm going to put on my glasses so I can see better. The name Stalin means steel. Stalin's actual name at birth was Joseph Vasil. Never mind. I had an opportunity once to meet his former chauffeur, who told me when I was driving Stalin, I would often hear him repeat with great firmness the affirmation, I am Stalin, I am Stalin, I am steel. For the bad karma he acquired in this life and in previous lives, he will have to suffer 100,000 years. On several occasions, Master told us, Stalin in a recent incarnation was the ruthless conqueror, Genghis Khan. Devi Mukherjee, a Bengali disciple, responded to Master's prediction regarding Stalin's punishment for past sins by exclaiming, "Only 100,000 years, Master?" As if that was nothing. Master said, "How long do you want someone to suffer? God is no tyrant. He loves all his children equally." And that was a beautiful answer. He loves Stalin too. But Stalin has made mistakes, and he has to learn from those mistakes that you don't go butchering millions. Stalin used to say when one person dies because his wife had died, it's a tragedy. When millions die, it's statistics. Well, no, he was not a good man. But he had the same God in him as everybody else has. And he had that quality of strength which required, when you turn that quality toward God, you know, your worst defects become your greatest virtues. For example, Master used to tell me that my greatest flaw in the past was doubts. And I used to doubt everything. But having asked all those questions, it's become, because I have no doubt now, I'm so firm in my faith. But what it has done is helped me now to answer people's questions. Because there's no doubt that anybody can come up with that I haven't already had myself. And so, in a way, it's been a great blessing. And so Stalin's strength, which he certainly had, it will be his greatest virtue and blessing in the end, because he will become strong in his desire for God, and nothing will be able to stand in his way. So we should never judge anybody. Everybody is on the same path to God. All people are children of the same one God. And whereas it's natural for us to have our little oppositions, nonetheless, all people are equally the children of God. And to go back to Dayamata, she was a deeply devout person and very sincere in her devotion to God. What greater virtue can you have than that one? So remember, this is another good thing for about living with other people. You don't have to go through the suffering for every mistake that you make. You can watch other people and see the mistakes they make and say, okay, then I won't make that one. This is why it's good to remember that you're a social creature. Man is a social creature. And what man does, man can undo. What man does, we can imitate or to reject and say, no, we won't go that way. But evil is not an evil thing in itself. Nobody is evil. There is evil, however. And what is that evil? Well, it's that which, see, when God created the universe, he had to push the energy outward from himself. And once that energy was pushed outward, it gained its own momentum, its own strength. And so there is this in nature, this push away from God and this pull back toward God. A tiger doesn't commit evil by killing people, because it's its nature to eat people. For us, it's inconvenient. We would rather it practice that nature elsewhere. But nonetheless, it's just the nature of the tiger. God made it that way, you could say. But we have to say that evil is that which kills, destroys, takes people away from their inner harmony. And so if a man commits murder, then he's on a higher level. Anything, whatever level you've reached, anything that pushes downward is evil. Anything that rises upward is good. So that wherever you are evolutionally, right? Thank you. If it's up, it's good for you. Down, it's bad. If you are let's say that this is a story Yogananda told about a woman who never did anything good for anybody. She stole, she took for herself, she did what she could, but one time she stole a carrot, and she bit into this carrot, and it had a worm in it. So she gave it to somebody. But when she died, naturally she went to the wrong place. And she said, I don't belong here. What are you doing? And they said, well, look. And they showed her book of life. Page after page of the good deeds, blank, blank, blank. Page after page of the dark deeds, full, written in the margins, footnotes. And finally she said, but I must have done something good. And so they found a footnote, tiny little thing at the bottom of a blank page, saying that, yes, she had given this carrot to somebody. And they said, well, this is not much of a good deed, but we'll let it be your help. So they said, here's a magic carrot, and you can hold this carrot, and it will take you up toward God. The lesson of that part of the story is that always emphasize your goodness. Always emphasize that which is hopeful for you. Never call yourself a sinner. Never say I am evil. Never emphasize your mistakes. Yogananda used to say that the greatest sin is to call yourself a sinner. He said a saint is a sinner who never gave up. And so this woman was given this magic carrot because even one good deed, if you cling to it, it will help you to rise. And so there she was with her magic carrot rising, and she began to feel a sort of a tugging at her feet. And she saw other people rising on the strength of this one magic carrot, which was her carrot. And so she said, hey, this is my carrot, get off. And so she kicked at the others, and in so doing lost her hold on the carrot, and she too tumbled down. And so the moral of the story is several. But actually, absurd though the story is, there's a lot of truth in it. Not in the sense that it happened literally, but in the sense that if you hang on to any good that you've done, it can be your raft over the ocean of salvation. But the other side is you must allow others to be helped too. You can't just cling to it selfishly for yourself. So this is one important thing with evil too. Remember, cling to the good that you've done and try to do good for other people too. Evil is very important to understand, is relative to your present position, so that if you're a good person, even one harsh act, even one harsh word is wrong, and you will have to pay for it. And on the other hand, if you're basically evil, and if you do one good thing for people, even that can help you. Always remember it is directional, and that which will help you to rise will help you to find your salvation. Now, I've finished my time for my lecture, and I'm supposed to ask if people have any questions. So, any questions? Yes. Yeah. Mind you, I'm deaf as a post.
Okay. Yes? Yeah? Okay. When you were talking about the economy, this came up to me this morning. I just read a really great article about what is happening with WikiLeaks. Are you familiar with this?
With who?
With WikiLeaks, the release of information, of secret information.
No.
No, you're not. Basically, hundreds of thousands of formerly secret documents about the correspondence of the elite, political people around the world, were just released. And I wonder if you have any comments about how this relates to the transformation toward Dwapara Yuga. And the-
Absolutely, it does relate. Everything is for a reason. Man is going to go through a great upheaval. It will mean warfare. It will mean atomic bombs. It will mean bombs everywhere. There are 30,000 atomic weapons stored. And you can't think that a few will fall and then people will say, let's go home. It doesn't happen that way. There will be warfare. There will be world war. There will be much suffering. But it is all meant for a good cause. That ultimately there is a need to cleanse our planet of certain wrong attitudes, avarice, and many other things. And I have to admit that I think that the cities of today will be destroyed. I don't have a very bright view of the immediate future, but of the long-range future, I think this world is going to enter a period of great beauty and great peace. Master said that there will be no war for 300 years. People will be so sick of fighting. We're in a new era. We're in an age of energy. We've gone beyond the age when people thought matter was everything. And now there is a conflict between these 2 points of view. And that's what's causing this explosion. In the end, it'll be good. For you and me, it won't be that good. But remember that the purpose of it in the end is cleansing and is good. And what were you talking about, the documents being released? What did he say on that?
There are millions of formerly secret documents that have been, somebody found a way to get them and have been released to the public.
Oh, and what do they say?
They say lots of things, but many are formerly private and secret diplomatic communications. And so that which was private is now being brought to
But
the
what is
public.
being brought out?
That allies spy on each other. It's all very petty, the way that these people look at each other, and that all the things that someone with your perspective would think these people talk to each other like, and have deceptions and very Machiavellian.
So they're pretending one thing and doing another. I
and
understand
it just
that.
all kind of just
I have
came
to
out.
say I'm not a diplomat. I think I've made that point pretty clear this morning. Any other questions? Yes.
Swamiji, I just wanted to thank you. I've been here every single week except for twice, and I just want to thank you. I've always sort of felt like my life had some sort of greater purpose, and in the last couple of months, I feel like my life has really changed, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, sincerely.
I'm very grateful. This is my purpose in life.
Yeah.
And of course I'm happy when people feel
Thank
the
you.
benefit of it. But one thing I have to say too, I've done a lot of things in my life, and somebody asked me recently in a radio interview, how have you done so many things? My answer was by not doing them.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done it. I've asked him to do it through me. I tell you, when I was wanting to be a writer, and I hadn't faith in God at that time, and I found that I'd sit before my typewriter and stare. But nothing would come. I didn't know what to write about. I didn't know what to say. But the more in tune I've become with my Guru and with God, the more I find there's nothing I can stop saying. It just flows through me. And I'm very grateful for that. And thank you.
Thank you. I have one question also. Well, first of all, I just wanted to let you know that publicly, like I have.
He wanted to thank you publicly. Now he has a question.
Okay.
I have battled for the last 10 years with alcoholism and tobacco, and I feel like my life has really changed in the last couple of months. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Okay, well, one thing that I've found, there's a story of somebody who was an alcoholic, and one day he found himself going to the alcohol closet, and he began to take one of the bottles, and suddenly became so angry with himself that he took all those bottles and hurled them on the pavement and broke every one of them, and in absolute fury. And he found from then on he didn't have that desire anymore. Sometimes it takes that moment of crisis in our lives where we just really get angry with ourselves for being this way, and damn it, I'm going to change. And that, sometimes it takes that kind of energy to overcome. Whereas if you say, well, I would like to change, on the other hand...
Yes.
I remember there was a quality that I wanted to get rid of. And in meditation, I was so furious with myself for always having to battle this thing. And I said, get out! I don't want you anymore! Get out! And I said it with all the force of my being. And I suddenly felt free from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I went out, and Master was standing above the tennis courts looking down over Los Angeles. And I knelt before him for his blessing. And he tapped me on the head. He said, very good.
Yes.
But sometimes that is the kind of energy that's needed.
Yeah. The one other thing I wanted to ask you is, this is kind of maybe far out there, but what are your thoughts on the whole 2012 and the, life ending or whatever?
What are your thoughts on 2012 and the Mayan calendar?
Yeah.
Well, I really don't know. It could be just coincidence, but I do think that we're coming toward big time. The Mayan calendar does not say that the human race would be destroyed. It says that it will be a critical time. And I do think that is true. I'm not a student of the subject. I am perfectly certain something's in the wind. And yes, it's interesting how here we come to 11, then to 12, just 2 years ago, 2 years from now. It's most interesting. I will not get into that debate because I don't know enough. Okay? Yes. Yeah.
Does your prediction of the collapse of civilization come from Yogananda? If so, how long does he think this time of devastation will last?
Does your prediction of the collapse of civilization come from Yogananda or yourself, and how long will it last?
He did not speak of the collapse of civilization. He spoke of the change in civilization. He spoke of great upheavals, of warfare, of depression. He said this depression will be far worse than the 1930s. And it's him I'm quoting. It's not my own self. I don't, that's the answer. Okay?
How
What's
long
that?
will it last?
This I don't know, but it won't. Listen, warfare, they had the 100-Year War in England back a few centuries ago. World War I and II lasted 4 years or a little bit more. I think the next war, with an atomic war, it'll last much less. I think that it cannot last too long. The means of destruction are too great now. And I think that it'll last maybe 10 years at the most. That's my opinion. He didn't say. Okay? Yes. You. Yes.
I wanted to know if you were familiar with the Urantia book.
What's
Are
that?
you familiar with the Urantia book?
The who?
Urantia.
Oh, not familiar. I know about it.
Okay, and do you have any specific viewpoints on it?
Do you have
If
any-
you're just a
any
little familiar with
viewpoints
it?
on it?
Well, my feeling is that it's fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah. I asked this question someone last time. I noticed that you don't have Krishna on your altar, and I was being told that Yogananda understood Krishna and Babaji to be one and the same. And I wanted to hear what your thoughts are about the nature of the relationship between Babaji, Krishna, and Christ.
Okay, did you get it?
Yes, I did. I think that they're two different souls. Yogananda said that Babaji is or was Krishna. In this lifetime, he is Babaji. Yogananda said that he was Arjuna, which means that Sri Yukteswar wasn't really his guru. Babaji was his true guru. This is a strange one. I personally have thought about this, naturally one does, and I've thought maybe that they were soulmates. Soulmates. Yogananda and Sri Yukteswar. They're opposite and they balance each other in that opposition. And I think that's possible. Do soulmates exist? You know, Master never talked about it, but he said someplace in the first edition of the Autobiography or somewhere that someday our two half-souls will join in the one spirit. And that concept of half-soul is what gave me some faith in it. Another one was a comment that he made that he said that before you reach liberation, you have to meet your soulmate. It cannot be a sexual union, but it must be spiritually entirely. And he said that even if your soulmate lives on another planet, you will have to have a vision of that person, he or she, him or her, and through vision you can have that kind of union that permits you to merge in God. So these are very strange aspects, the sort of things that even I, after 62 years on the path, puzzle over. So it's not something quite obvious. But these are specifically what Yogananda said. He said that he was Krishna, that he was Arjuna. He said Krishna became Babaji. He said that that Babaji and Krishna are his true guru. And Sri Yukteswar, what? He didn't answer. He told me also, interestingly enough, just while we're on the subject of the past incarnations of these gurus, that when Master was William the Conqueror, Sri Yukteswar was Lanfranc, the monk who was his spiritual counselor. And he said that Lahiri Mahasaya was the Janaka, a great saint, king, royal rishi of ancient India. And I suspect that our line of gurus goes back for many thousands of years. But more than that I can't say.
Was there any mention of whether Krishna and Christ may have been the same?
No, I don't think they were.
Soulmates.
I don't believe they were. No, I think, I don't think that. Yes.
Hi. I was blessed last night to listen to the wonderful oratorio that you wrote on the life of Christ. And I felt, despite years of Catholic school, that last night I think I felt closest to kind of getting what the life of Christ is to mean to us. I can't put my finger on it, but it feels almost as though the message you're bringing about the sheer stupidity that's about to, change things in the world today is related to the crucifixion of the Christ. And can you speak? Am I on the right track? Is there?
I need help.
I might too. She loved the oratorio last night and felt closer to Christ than after many years of Catholic school. And I think the question is, can he speak about the crucifixion?
The idea of the crucifixion in the story last night was, it's still so baffling how that could happen.
Yeah.
And it compares to the cataclysm you speak of happening in today's world. Are they supposed to be a lesson in there related?
Well, it's very hard to answer that kind of question quickly because there are many ramifications. Goodness has to be crucified in order to become strong. Did Jesus suffer on the cross? He did not. He suffered not his own pain. He was suffering for the ignorance of humanity that continually rejects good, rejects God. And so that was his suffering, the suffering for the blindness of people who cause their own suffering. Why was he suffer? Why was he crucified? Because it was a dark age, but people there had to be strong confrontations because that was the kind of era it was. How did I write the oratorio? That perhaps is more interesting. I went to the Holy Land and I meditated in many of the spots there. And when I got back, I went back to Italy, into the town of Sorrento. And then I meditated on the vibrations that I had felt. And I asked God to give me a melody that would reflect those vibrations. And God gave them to me. In one day I wrote 22 songs. It's just was amazing how it came to me. But it was all, those vibrations are there. This is the benefit of pilgrimage. When you go to places that have been sanctified by some great soul, then you can be helped too. I don't know how to address your broader subject because I'm not so sure it is a subject. It's more that I believe that God plays many roles in this world, and all of them have their purpose. All of them have their uplifting inspiration. Okay? Yes. There are 3 people here. No, I saw you first, so you first. Yeah. Now that lady right next to you, on your left. There you go.
I'm a little scared to ask this question. I have basic misunderstanding about God. I feel like
I've really think what?
if
She has she's a little afraid to ask this question. She has a basic misunderstanding
about God, if we're humble, if we feel like God is separate from us, isn't that separation right there? Isn't God just love, just me, just you?
He's not separate from you.
It's not separate at all.
He is you.
He is me.
He dreamed you into existence.
Yes.
And when you become one with him, you'll become him.
Yeah.
Or become he. You're not different from him, except that you're blind in your humanity. But when you become one with him, you find that that's what you always were. We're all children of the same God.
Right. And so when you say God, what does that mean?
Why do we say he? Well, of course God is not masculine. He's either or neither. He's both male and female or neither. But the point is that God, even great saints, speak of God in the second person, speak of him in this. Even though they're one with him, they come down the level to have the enjoyment of this I and thou relationship. It's not the highest truth, but it's a beautiful relationship, and many enjoy it. And so they come down to this level. But
it's just
they are one with that. The thing is, they don't like to always, in this human body, like to live in that abstraction. You see?
It's almost like a figure of speech then.
Hmm?
It's almost like a figure of speech then.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
The one on your right.
Could you please show us some of Yogananda's mannerisms and maybe talk like him?
What's that?
Could you show us some of Yogananda's mannerisms? Could you talk like him?
He had a strong Bengali accent. It wasn't always easy to understand him. I hear, say bye-bye, declare. Like that he would talk. Yeah.
Yeah, hi. I wonder, why did Yogananda choose to die or leave his body at such a young age, do you think?
He had finished his mission, and he told us that too. Even a year or two before he left his body, he said, my mission is finished. Great saints like that, often great masters, often come for a specific mission, and when they've done it, there's no need to hang around.
Do you feel like he could have done more? Or do you
What is
agree
that?
that he finished his mission?
Do
What's she
you
saying?
feel like he could have done more?
He chose not to, or God chose not to. I think perhaps he felt it was our time to carry on. I mean, we can always challenge God. In fact, Master said the reason God doesn't come to people is that he knows that all they want to do is argue with him. Okay. One question more. Yes.
How do you think individualism plays into finding your role in life, like finding what you're supposed to do? How do you think individualism and like self-expression play into that?
I didn't get that at
How
all.
do you think individualism and self-expression play into you finding what your role should be in life?
See, 1 minute. I'd say that as long as you want to live for yourself, you will not be doing your true role in life. You have to offer that little self, your ego, which is not your true self. You have to offer that up into the infinite and say, God, do with me as you will. That is your mission in life. God has a song to sing through you. It's a different song through every individual. Every person is unique. But in his individuality, he tries to be unique by being different. And so he mucks it all up. The thought that I want this and I want that, these are all self-definitions. You have to get rid of those self-definitions. Realize that God is dreaming your life through you. And when you finally can be enough in tune with him to see that he is doing it, not me, you'll find that you're much more unique then than you were when you tried to be unique by copying a particular group of people, like being a hippie or a beatnik or engineer or whatever it might be. Okay, it's time to stop.
You know,
And I have to, huh?
I was going to say that Swamiji is leaving tomorrow for a month's vacation, very, very well earned. So maybe we could all bless him and send him on his way with chanting Om 3 times.
I'm all for this.
send our love and blessings to Swamiji.
Thank you very much. God bless you all, and I'll see you in a month.